Good morning. My name is Elias Redstone, and I'm the Artistic Director of Photo 2021 International Festival of Photography, taking place in Melbourne and across regional Victoria from the 18th of February to the 7th of March 2021. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which I live, and I pay my deep respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you so much for joining us for Photo Live, a season of conversations with Photo 2021 artists about the social and cultural role photography plays in our everyday lives, highlighting the importance of centering Black, Indigenous, feminist, and queer voices. Photo Live expands on Photo 2021's festival theme, exploring the relationship between photography and the truth. Today, I'm delighted to introduce the American photographer Quil Lemons, who is currently exhibiting in the Aperture exhibition, The New Black Vanguard, Photography Between Art and Fashion. The exhibition is expertly curated by Antoine Sargent and is presented exclusively in Australia at Bunjil Place until the 27th of September as part of Photo 2021's expanded programme. While Melbourne is currently under lockdown, you can view a virtual tour of the exhibition and read Antoine's essay about the New Black Vanguard online. So, Quil Lemons. Quil will be joining us from New York. He is a Brooklyn-based African-American photographer. Quil's work is a representation of the community he comes from. While his subject is often Blackness or Black bodies, the context of his work comes from the internet, queerness, and popular culture. The themes of his work are timeless and ambitious in scope. Subjects like masculinity, queerness, race, positivity are played out in often disruptive images that feel like pure imagination. Quil dances the line between the fantastic and realistic, drawing influence from our current cultural climate, giving his work an eerily familiar feeling. Quil will be in conversation with Shantel Wetherall, a Melbourne-based culture writer, presenter, and maker, who is featured in The Guardian Australia and the Sydney Morning Herald. Shantel produces and hosts the excellent podcast, Hey Auntie. Photo Live is supported by Creative Victoria and the Australia Council for the Arts, and today's event is presented in partnership with Bunjil Place. Quil, Shantel, hello, how are you both doing?
Hi.
Good to see you. Quil, thanks for joining us on Sunday evening in New York. I'm about to disappear and leave you guys to it, just for the audience to know that the talk will go on for about half an hour, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions to be asked to Quil. If you do have questions, ask them at any point during the conversation in the comments section, and we'll make sure we get to them towards the end. If you'd like to find out more information about the New Black Vanguard exhibition, Photo Live talks, etc., visit photo.org.au or send us messages on social media. Okay, over to you guys. I'll leave you to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elias. Quil, good evening.
Good morning.
It is so good to see you today and to get to speak with you. Quil, I've got to start.
Cool.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I've got to start by congratulating you on your latest cover for GQ Middle East, featuring the incredible, beautiful leader. He's an architect, he's an actor, Yahya Abdul Mateen.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
Tell me about that project, Quil.
Well, that project was shot in February. We were like, yeah, just the general climate of the state of the world, everything just goes up in the air. And it was just really fun to like have that amount of time to sit with those photos and really develop that story. So grateful for the amount of time I got to spend with that. I think that's why it makes the images so special. Yeah, and like also he's like stepping into like such an iconic role of like Candyman, which in my, like, to me, it's so special. I grew up like watching that movie like since I was a small child. It scared the hell out of me, but It's one of my favorite horror movies because it like centers black just black people, and it doesn't we don't get killed off in the first 5 minutes. We're actually in the movie he's killing everyone. Which is like it was so cool to me to like see that but also be afraid of that, and it's such a nuanced story, and so it was really nice to incorporate that like visual language that they were building with that film and bring it into like subtly into my shoe, and like also just to shoot him was like he's a dream, so it was like so much fun.
Amazing. And from the point of view of a new Black vanguard, you couldn't have a better example. So, an incredible actor who straddles so many different forms of identity. He's, very well known for his use of color, his intellect. He's come from being an architect to being an actor, just light work for him. And then, he's working on this incredible project, as you say, so nuanced, and then working with you. And so much of this cultural moment wrapped up in that one project.
It was like so sweet to shoot him too, because like a lot of times, like me being younger and Black, I step onto sets and people go, where's the photographer? Are you the assistant? And I'm like, girl, what? I am right here. I'm Quil Lemons. There's no other mystery man. I definitely do my own stunts. All these photos are me. And I'm like, you got to catch up with the program. Like, I'm 23 and I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's definitely revolutionary. And I'm like, definitely just so grateful to be in the space and to make the stuff that I do, but also just really respect it. And it was like stepping on a set with someone who's also carving their own lane. It was like a mutual respect. And it was really nice to have a subject that was just so willing to go for it and make something like this truly unique, and it has its own like mark on this time. I can't ask for more out of a subject. And I think we really made something iconic. While also like referencing like such a stark moment in like Black visual history. But making it our own too, because it feels like him. If he feels very much himself in those images, it's not like, oh, we're just like putting a costume on. He is our Candyman. He is our actor that we get to praise and like really uplift and like be a part of this journey, watching him become a scene stiller. So yeah, it was really nice to have a little not like touch on this like journey, but also he has a touch on my journey. So it's like two roads that are like parallel, just ascending and to like Black excellence.
What more could you want than that, right? Well, absolutely, you are part of this transformative moment. But if you will you come with me now? We'll go back in time, back to the start. And I wanted to ask you, thinking back to when you were first interested in photography, when did you first start to notice that Black bodies were not necessarily being documented a great deal? And what did you take to be the reason for that at the time?
Okay, so me getting into photography, that started with my family. Like my aunt always just let me play with her cameras during the holidays, and it would like my other relatives would be like, why are you letting, he's like 6, why are you letting him play around with like your huge like Canon 5D? And she's like, well, like this is the only way he's gonna be able to like learn how to play, like to actually shoot on these things. And I'm like so grateful that she allowed that to happen. And then like me noticing that we weren't like Black people weren't in the center in media, I honestly like I went to a very Black Muslim school in Philadelphia, so my like community, like in the community around me was very Black, and I really didn't come into I didn't interact with many white people. So I didn't really understand. I was like, where are they? Like they only exist in like this medium of the TV. Like only on these shows do I see like whiteness. And then I started to understand as I got older that white people exist in world, one, and then two, they are definitely like hyper present in media. And where like me like watching, like I watch Girlfriends with my mom, and like understanding that like Tracee Ellis Ross is like amazing just for like having to be on the show, one as like the lead, but also to have 4 other women. That's how like I started to understand like, oh, this is like positive representations of media, and then like also like watching Martin and like seeing all of those things, and like then realizing like those shows were for us, like for the Black community, and that like many people didn't grow up watching like Martin, and we didn't like, I like caught those things because like that's what my family was watching. And so like I think through television is like how I started to understand that like Blackness was only being relegated to like 3 or 4 stations, where whiteness was able to exist everywhere else. And like that's kind of like where I was like, oh, that's really interesting to me, because like there's so much beauty in being Black, and like I see it just in my everyday life interacting with people like around me. But it wasn't being put out. And then like photographically, I like when I started, I was just making images with my friends, and of course growing up in a Black neighborhood, all my friends tend to be Black. And so I was like, that was really interesting to me. And I think through this process, a lot of people of my like garden photography were posting on Tumblr, like self-documenting in that way. And just noticing that like, oh, wait, they're doing this really cool stuff over here, but we're only allowed to like exist in Tumblr. And so then when I went to school, I went to the new school, I graduated in 2019, is when I really noticed that like, oh, we can really shift this whole industry. Like, and it wasn't just me noticing that, it's everyone in this book, it was also noticing that as well. Is that like, with like we were making cooler stuff, like cooler to us, but like cooler in the span of like being inclusive and being like representing everyone. We were making things that have not been like shown or put out to like mass culture. And like honestly, like for me, I didn't realize like how monumental that was, and like how it was allowing people to be seen and allowing people to see themselves until like I put out Glitter Boy, which was like my first project. And like when I started receiving messages from people around the world, like, oh my God, your series has, like, I've seen myself. Like, I'm never going to forget, I was messaged by a young man in Jakarta, and he was like, I came out to my mom and I put the glitter on just like you. And we both just, we had like, they had an interesting like dialogue about it and like what that means. And I'm like, that is where I realized I was like, this is so much bigger than me, but I was still very early on in the career. And like, now it's like, I'm still very early on in just my existence on this planet. So I'm like really just still figuring out like personally, like what else do I have to say? And like just hyper mindful that these images mean so much to, well, one to me, but also to people that look like me. And then also just to people that want to show up for people that look like me. So it's like, it's so much and it encompasses so much. And I guess that kind of answers your question. It's such a segue into like why I do the things that I do and why I'm like, and every time I'm in a room or in any conversation for when I'm shooting something, I'm like, I need to have Black models on here. Like there needs to be like, a Quil Lemons photo is not a Quil Lemons photo if there's not Black people in the frame. I'm like, that's just what I see. And this is how I see the world. And I'm like, I didn't want to lose that stepping into more commercial sets and stepping into more like upper echelon, like high, like hoity-toity, like magazine sets where like they could be like, no, we want to do it this way. And I'm like, well, I'm not shooting it if you're going to not like give me who I want to shoot. And like, because you would give if I was of fairer skin, you would give me a fairer skin, whoever you wanted to shoot. So I'm going to ask the same thing. I want to shoot Black models for this, and that's what I'm going to do. And like, that's just me.
I love that so much. A couple of things that really came through to me in what you said. And it was really an exciting contrast for me because, you know, we're here in Australia, and to hear you articulate that what you were seeing in the media and TV came through to you as the hyper presence of whiteness was like, ping, it was a light bulb moment for me, because so much of this conversation is framed around inclusion, like bringing us in from the cold, like we don't exist and have a whole rich, like, vibrant.
Yeah, like it's always so funny when like they're like it being when like people in positions of power are like, oh, we need to like include this, like it doesn't exist and thrives fully on its own. Like we don't need to be included. It's like cute to be included into these conversations, but you guys have to be also very aware that we have our own structures and like they exist on its own. Like in a lot of ways, we as just a community, a global community of just like Black and brown people, we have so much power. And it's so like nice to like fully see us like be able to like realize that and appreciate that and know our worth and stepping into like a lot of these rooms. Like if I'm coming into your space, I'm coming with my list of demands. And I start to understand where like Nikki is like, I'm stepping on the set. I'm not coming in here unless you have all of my writers, like unless my fruit is picked out properly. Like, because I am very much a queen in my space, as I feel for myself as well. I come with all of these things and all of like this huge community coming with me. And like when you think about the translation to sales and to money being benefited from these systems and like our existence in this space, and like with that, like it's like we get like, it's so interesting where like the stamp of approval from us is just as much needed for them to exist and continue to exist in the future. And so it's like right now you see like there's like a teetering of like power, and it's like do you go into like more of a predominantly white space, or do you stay in the Black space, and like how do we build this for ourselves? And I think that's the question I'm asking myself, is like how do I continue to just build and establish our own structures? Because like I am personally tired of like waiting to be accepted by white structures. It may be the museum, it may be the magazine, may it be anything else, because I'm like, my existence is valid. All of the photographers of my guard existence is valid, and it has been before the christening of like any of these magazines. And it's like hyper appreciative of it, but also just very aware that we didn't need it, because we have thrived on our own, and we have always thrived on our own.
I love that so much. And do you know what? That is what's new. It's not just the images that are fresh, it's the attitude that's fresh. It's engaging with the wider artistic and creative community in a way that says, I am happy to be here with you, but I'm not here for your tap on the shoulder and validation. I'm bringing this to the table, right?
No, it's like I am the table. I am a full-on table in itself. And like this is me like extending that to you guys, and like extending our own table, and like it which is what the whole entire world needs, is just to all come to the same table and be able to like to talk and like have discussions that needed to be had for so long. And it's like now we're starting to take the steps, and like, because it's like not joining that table, it's like we need to come together. It's not because I would hate to, and I'm happy that like I'm a part of this, like this book in itself. Like I like in just the past few days just have like to step back, that this was only 6 months ago, and like really realize the power that it means for 15 Black photographers to come together, and what that means for like our like just global culture, and like just understanding like Blackness is not something that has to be one. There's 15 of us here, and we all do amazing things, and like that to me it means more than like the fact that we're all coexisting right now. Because I'm like, that's why we like for like whiteness is why you have like Stephen Meisel, and why you've had like just monolithic photographers. You have Leibowitz, you have all these people existing at the same time, and like all of these names. And like for Black photographers, you have to like pull, and you have to like, it's like, why, like you guys should know, like people should know like Micheline Thomas's name. People should, like in the same way they know Leibowitz's name, they should know Deanna Lawson's name in the same way they know Meisel's name. And like these are like my like greats of photography that I've like had to study to like even know they existed, and like had to, and it shouldn't be that way. Like we should be learning about all of those things, and like just the overall like I just felt like growing up, it was also really just interesting that like access to Black art is not in the same way. Like we all have seen Picasso's from like birth, and it's like, why have I not like, and like for me, I went to like going to a very all Black school. I like remember seeing Faith Reingold in my school, and like seeing those works, and like seeing what that like meant, and like that joy, and like also like the understanding that like there's like also certain Black paintings that always appear in like grandmother's homes, and you're like, where did this painting come from? And it's like I've seen it everywhere, and like I always blink on the name, and it's going to piss me off. But this is one painting that was on Marvin Gaye's album cover, and
Oh,
it's like seen everywhere, and it's like just to understand what like that like the history and the richness there, and it's like it always gets like pushed to a margin, and I'm like sick of that. And like it's nice to now step into our zone and like just keep uplifting and just uplifting like Black talent. Sorry, I'm like I got really like passionate because like this means so much to me.
you can see me over here. I'm pretty much praise dancing in my seat, Quil. I am so on board for all of this. Things that I loved from what you said. We have our own iconography.
Yes.
And I love the way that you are the result, the fantastic, exciting, revolutionary result of what happens when Black people and Black talent has access to Black art and can be surrounded by and not just given little crumbs of Black talent and Black brilliance. And you and your amazing talent and all of this that you've achieved so young is showing the potential that we have when we are actually not just drip fed. Can I ask a question, Cole? You have such a strong sense of legacy for somebody so young. You really are switched on to what you're creating in the world, not just in America, in the globe, but also what you're creating for future generations. Is that about wanting to be a good ancestor? Is that just because you're very politically astute? Tell me where that comes from.
Where does that come? Like that's a great question, and I think it has to come like my mom was like very well. My mom had me at 14. So that was like a very interesting, like me and her, we grew up together, and like she always made me very aware of just my culture and like where I come from, and like also just everyone around, like my family's like very like pro-Black, and it's like it's just really nice to grow up, and I grew up around a lot of like women, and so women that wanted me to know my history and wanted to know where I came from. And so I went to a lot of programs in Philly, and shout out to like Philadelphia Freedom Schools, which was an after school program that like I read I read Malcolm X's like biography at like probably like 12, and just like understanding that. But like what that program was, it was bringing kids from all over Philly together and like teaching them about just like unity and what that means, and like what that truly means for Black people to come together and just like convene and like exist in like utopia space. Because like there weren't many programs like that. So I think like the idea of like legacy and to pass on knowledge to another generation, and to like my existence in photography is really an interesting one, because like it's built upon so many other Black photographers. Like I like my work references so many like amazing Black female photographers, because they have like set the blueprint. Like Carrie Mae Weems literally set the blueprint for me to exist in 2020. And it's like I would be lying to say that work didn't have an effect on me and like my career and like the things I wanted to show and do. And like there's so many other Black photographers and painters and like that I can name that I've like seen, and like that has like work that has arrested me, and like really arrested, no, not arrested, I don't want to use that word, that has like completely
put that word in the
like
chat.
whoa, throw that one out. Black men arrested, no, that always goes wrong. But work that has like completely like captivated me into like wanting to make something that you connect with, well, like make something that that allows other Black people to have just visceral, like innate connection to. And I wanted to make something like that, but I wouldn't have been able to create my own visual language if I didn't see other Black people, one, in like making work, but in two, just like having their work be seen globally. And like I wouldn't be here without that. And like I always want to make it known that this is like me existing in 2020 and like as a photographer shooting all of these, like shooting things that I shoot is just a building block of like where we're going and like where we're going as like, because it's not just photographers, it's like all Black artistic creators. We are just pushing the needle forward and forward and forward. And like I also like want to shout out to like just like there was a bunch of music video directors that like I grew up watching
Yes.
that like has like an interesting take on like just what it like the like I remember I just watched Pharrell's like video like those like 2000 early 2000 videos is what I grew up with and like began to like understand like what it like understand Blackness and what it means to like just celebrate our existence in our own space, but then like have it infiltrate all global culture. And we've seen it just happens. Like Blackness always is just like hyper present in our fields in global culture, and we set a precedent, and then it just slowly trickles out into like all other aspects of like art. So I think that's like what I tap into. It's just a really rich history and culture that has transcended generations.
I made so many notes. There was so much that you said that really ping resonated for me. I love that you called out Black video directors, because I think it was like the 20th anniversary or some other anniversary of Missy Elliott's Super Duper Fly.
Yeah.
Right. Talk about creating a vision of a Black utopia, Afrofuturism.
Whole world.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that you called that out. And I wrote down here the importance of artists creating visions of Black futures and Black utopias, and how generative that is for Black people to be able to see and experience them. Because, cool, I'm here in Australia, a Black nation, but population-wise, overwhelmingly white. There's people who love your work in Jakarta, in Europe, in all sorts of countries who, in their lived experience, they may not have access to being immersed in that incredible, rich, visionary, hopeful, creative vision of Blackness. But that is part of the job of the artist. And speaking of which, I really want to share some of your iconic covers and have you talk to us about how you made them, but also how these influences come through in those pieces of work. Can you share a couple with us?
Okay. So I think, well, just because we're starting, I have to talk about the Glitter Boy series, because this is what put me on the map and like why I'm here today.
Yes.
My pages. This is from the book. Okay. You guys can see. So.
Such an incredible image, Quil. And you originally posted that image on your Instagram. Tell us the story behind that. Beautiful.
So how Glitter Boy came about was I went to a party for Milk Makeup, and I think it would have had to have been 2016, which it was honestly a normal night out in New York City, but it was to launch this new makeup brand that was like coming up out of like Gen Z. And they asked to do my makeup, and I just remember being like, hey, well, I have a reference if you want to do my makeup. And it was Frank Ocean's Nike's video, and he had like glitter just like pouring off his face, and I was like, okay, let's like give this my own little spin and like quirk to it. So I posted a photo of myself in the makeup, and I captioned it, "Real niggas wear makeup," and people online went like insane, because people weren't ready to understand that Black men can wear makeup. And like it was like honestly a polarizing response, which I'm completely okay with. I think that I like to let my art make people feel uncomfortable, and I think that's fine. Like if people don't have a reaction, I think then did you really do it with art? If it's like, pretty nice. If it's not like, oh my God, what did I just see? Like, I think I like that reaction a lot more, because it makes you think, what did you just see? And like, and people were like outraged and being like, no, men can't do that. And I was just like, why? And then they couldn't even answer that question. And I think for me, that was the start of the series because I was just noticing that men, like and particularly Black men, have an issue when it comes to embracing femininity, and also not knowing that just men in general, we play around with like our gender identity and gender expression a lot. And people, and just as people, I think people do it every day. Like some days you like to be like be a little bit more masculine, some days you like to be a little bit more feminine. And I think that we're always swinging on a pendulum of like who we are, and how we want to present that. And I think for Black men, society has always told us that we had to be hyper masculine to be accepted and to fit into stereotypes and norms that might not be true to oneself. And I wanted to honestly, for that series, I shot a lot of my friends, and I wanted to give them a space of like liberation and to like feel like they could be whoever they want to be is what I was really aiming for. It's not necessarily a series about being queer. Like that's my experience of like me coming and stepping into my queerness is like me being able to wear makeup and do whatever, however, and just adorn myself however I want. But I think the real takeaway I wanted from the series is just like you can be whoever you want to be and wear makeup because it doesn't have a gender. Makeup is not something that is gender until we make it gender. And I think you also have to realize, and just people in general need to realize that nothing that we do as a like you can set your own rules. And like society has told us that like boys boys have to wear pants and girls have to wear skirts, and like that's BS. Like you can wear whatever you want. And I love seeing that, like, because I did that now like 3 or 4 years ago, but then I go to now on TikTok and you see a bunch of like young men wearing skirts, and I'm just like, I never would have thought that we would. And like these are, who knows what their sexuality is, because it doesn't matter. Like people aren't even asking this question. It's just a good fit. And I think that's what I wanted to like just give like men, but also Black men, the space to just be. And I think we never really given that. And makeup was just the entryway and just like a medium and a device to express things. And I think glitter was my makeup of choice because glitter isn't quote unquote always associated with like femininity. Glitter can be whatever it wants to be. And I think also I was like the barrier to entry for that was a little bit easier for men to understand because it sort of it's not foundation. And like, but a lot of men do wear foundation in media. Like you have to when you're stepping on camera and it's a lot of lights. But here nor there, I just felt like the glitter was just it allowed like one, black skin radiates, and then two, if you're adding a little sparkle to it, it just makes it something truly, truly special. And like doing the makeup for it was also really interesting to like learn like myself. Like I was literally like on YouTube just researching how I was like, how the hell am I gonna get this glitter to stick to their face? And and then it was just like a full-on like process, and I was like really happy to have learned that because I got to also appreciate what MUAs bring to my sets and like understand that that is not easy. And to like really scope makeup on someone's face, it took me a bunch of times to get it right. And then like even if I was like, some of it is like going for like a little bit of a messy look, and it's like that is still very, very hard. And I'll show some more where it's like
yes, incredible.
Made something special, and I think I chose the color pink because, well, one is always associated with femininity, and like two, I just like the color pink. So it's like subtle things that just always like begin to appear throughout the course of the work, but that was the beginning of it all. I have a few more covers if you want to see them.
I absolutely love that. We definitely need to look at a couple more covers. One thing I would like to say though is I love that you teased out that element of craft that's part of your work, that you often fulfill so many roles. And you mentioned that black skin radiates. And I could not let that comment go by without pausing to talk to you about the way you light your subjects. It's something that Black people notice every time, and that people who may not be Black will just notice the amazing difference in your photography. Just the way that you light us and the lighting of Black people in general has been part of this transformation. I think about Moonlight, I think about Issa's demands for proper lighting on set, and I see your work. Talk about lighting black skin and how you do it and why it's important.
It's so interesting because I even shared a video on my Instagram story today, and it was showing the history of like photography and how like the actual process of making film, which is where we started into making images when it like in the photographic way, was inherently racist because it was not made to show black skin. And the video can go into depth about it. For me, it's like always having to like combat the actual medium. And so like knowing what works for black skin, and honestly, natural light works the best. And then like also understanding that like black skin has red undertones, and like understanding like though, well, you just understand it naturally as a black person. And then like making sure that we're moisturized. That is a very integral thing. I will never post an image with someone looking ashy, and I like will make sure.
I'm not going to name any names, but there has been a recent example that could have used a tub of cocoa butter and saved a lot of trouble.
I'm just gonna laugh. Everyone has their own photo style, but I will say that when a black person is particularly shot by a black photographer, there's a simple way to, not even simple, it's just like it's a natural understanding of just black skin and what works, and then what can also almost borderline as being menstrual, because I think sometimes with photographers that aren't of the same skin tone as their subjects, they want to hue darker, and I think that is a weird sense of erasure, or it can hue lighter to be more palatable. And I think that if you just, when you're shooting black people, you need to allow their skin tones to be what they are. And it's just my personal bias. Like I don't ever manipulate my subject skin tone to be darker or lighter. I let it be what it is because I love the many shades of what it means to be black, and to have multiple hues of brown, and like what that means, because you get to see a lot of shades of white, but you don't get to see a lot of shades of what it means to be black and brown. So yeah, I think that, and you can even see it with like the expansion of just like the beauty industry, like the expansion of like having more tones of foundation and like what that means. And like shout out to Rihanna to really have changed the beauty industry to have really good makeup, because for so long, a lot of the makeup that was used on professional photo sets was never in enough shades to cover black skin. And you end up with weird pigments and tones that aren't reflective of the person's true skin color. And what else do I do? I love a really dewy moment on the skin, because I'm just like to make like black. I love when black skin is just very supple and moist. So it's like I would like hype like moisturization, but then also I love to like give a little mist or like a sense of like I love a good gloss moment on black skin, because I'm like then it just like shines in like this great way. Or I love a little bit like a nice spritz of like water, so then it's like super moist and it's like almost like I want to touch it because it's like so nice and supple. So yeah, that's like how that comes about. And I just think that I think black creators just think a lot more about what it just means to be black in these spaces, because like there hasn't been many like as over time we're still just allowing black people to be seen, where we're still having first of like for black people. So it's like we need to do this like right and like really really get it right, because this is our first time having these things happen. So I'm like, I think we just think about like knowing that going on to a lot of these sets, and like knowing that like, even as subjects, is that we have to just be like just thinking so much more, because who knows, like this is the one of like literally the one like our like number one of whatever always. So it's like you have to do it right.
I absolutely love that. I love the way that it's just a sensibility that you're bringing to your work. I've had a wonderful question sent through from one of the people who's viewing, and I'd love to just shoot it over to you. Hi, thank you for this wonderful question. They say that they love the way that you play with masculinity in your work. It's great to see. Are there any ways that you would like to challenge notions of masculinity in your work going forward?
I think I'm still personally unpacking like my understanding of my own masculinity. And so as that just grows and changes and evolves, I will be continuously playing with that concept. I'm a Black queer man, and the subjectivity to masculinity has been something that's always been, and like my like proxy to that is like me. So I'm like, and then like what that means entering certain spaces is always very interesting to me. And so like my last like one of my personal series, not my last personal series, but one I put out earlier, later end of 2019 was Boy Parts, and I explored this idea of like the full self that like I began the conversation with Glitter Boy, but it was like kind of placing the mirror in front. And then for Boy Parts, I kind of wanted to place a prism in front of it, because I feel like the Black masculine experience is something that's always fragmented, and you only get to be a certain version of yourself in certain settings. And I wanted to like explore what it would look like if Black masculinity got to show up as its full self, encompassing all aspects of life at one time. And I think that whiteness is allowed a lot more nuance than Black identity. And it's really interesting because like in that series I have a lot of like clusters of like the clothing is just like almost like all over the place. But I think that masculinity in itself creates, we all are like, I think men are in general end up being like this like Frankenstein creature of like what is acceptable from this part, what's acceptable from that part, and like pulling it all into being a man. And like what does that mean is my question. And like what does that look like, and like how like the fragmentation is always something very interesting to me, and I wanted to bring that forefront into the forefront of the photo, where it's like you'll see in those photos like people are wearing like sleeves of florals, but then where like tattoos are hyper present. The skin is like, well, amazing, because I always just try to make sure of that. Then like the jeans are like doubled and baggy, and it's like you could be all of these things at once, but also just at the baseline be beautiful. And I think that's what I was trying to express with that. The subject of just like exploring masculinity, like personally, is just like that just changes and grows as like I get older. And like honestly, I'm every year I'm just like throwing like all of my old notions out of the window, and just like in entering like a new space is always, for me, I feel like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly every year, because it's just like, wow, how did we get here? And like how do we get to this like point of like acceptance and like discomfort of just being and existing? And like then how could I share where I'm at with the rest of the world is kind of what happens. And I think you can see just my evolution as an artist between those series, because they both explore the idea of masculinity, but in very different ways, and like, but also in the same way. And I think that could answer the question. When you'll have another version of what comes from like me exploring masculinity, I don't know, because I'm still on that personal journey.
I love that it's such a personal journey, and there's so much of you in your work, Quil. When I think about that, though, I think about this moment that we're in the world, and I wonder how you've been able to protect your creativity, how you've responded to so many outside stimuli. You know, we have the movement for Black Lives, which you have been very supportive of on all of your channels, but also we have had COVID lockdown. You know, you're a portrait artist. How have you protected your creativity? How have you fostered your creativity in that time?
Well, I feel like whenever I really am in like a turmoil, which COVID has definitely brought on, like in the early on stages, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, I gotta go back to my mom's house. This is just too much. I'm like, I need to just be with my family. And I think that's where like I'll go home. Like, honestly, that's the true case, maybe. Like, I live in New York City, but Philadelphia will always be home. And that's where I go, when I really, really need a hard like app, like if like out. Oh, my tooth popped out. Oh, well, we're live. But basically I just go home. And yeah, I think I find myself there, like my original self, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me, you know, and it's beautiful because there is that naturalism in your work. As much as it's high fashion and the cover of the New York Times, there is always that naturalism and that ease because it's all coming from you. And if you want to be able to do that, you need to be comfortable in yourself. Can you talk to me about that amazing series you did called Hey, Can I FaceTime You? I love this. It was so innovative.
Well, okay, how did that even? I ended up on a phone call with one of my like really closest friends, and like we were just like fooling around, and I was like, would you want to do a FaceTime shoot? And it was all of like 6 minutes. And I took the first portraits of my friend Carrie, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And for me, it was honestly just an experience of just like I wanted to just call all my friends and check in and see if they were okay. Like COVID's been very interesting time, and like also just like people that like I've admired on social media and just like, hey, like, are you good? Because like literally everyone I know and like, well, everyone in the world was affected by this. And so it's like, I am been separated from like my found family because we're all not in the same space. And for me, like going back home was a very nice experience, but it also made me really realize that I'm an adult and I have my own I have my like this is my family, but I have my other family that I need to like check in on. And so that's why I like FaceTime 26 people just to say like, are you good? And it came out of a space of just being like, well, I can't shoot on set anymore because of COVID. And I was like, well, I guess being a photographer is over. I had a good run, but we can't be in person for at that time. I was like, well, okay, got to figure this out. I was like, girl, we're going to be sitting on mom's couch for a long time. Who knows when we'll be able to shoot in real life again. So I wanted to really just challenge myself to like keep being creative. And I had a moment and I was like, you have built, I was like, me to me, like it's always a moment where I'm like, no, you are that bitch. Because I was like, you built a career off of like, with no real budget, with no like, just off the strength of my creativity. So I was like, what can I do? And I was like, just having like mental dances, like full on SpongeBob meme, like all little me's are running around in my head, like everything's on fire, and like really just trying to like pull creativity from like a place after like being in a personal turmoil. Because I was like literally like what's happening in the world, like every 3 seconds it was like what's happening, what's going on, I don't even know. And then just being like, oh, the simple act of calling and photographing my friends through the medium of FaceTime and like really treating that as a medium of like a way or channel to photograph and like constructing those images in the same way I would do if I was using my medium format camera or any camera you can put in my hands. Because I was like, Boy Parts was shot on a cell phone. I shot that on a Google Pixel. And so I was like, now girl, if you like, I was like, that's why I was like, what, like, if you can do all of that, like, no matter what the medium, and the photo ends up being just as strong, then we could do this in FaceTime. And that's when I was like, boom, we got it. And I really like, I practiced a lot using my siblings and like calling them on their own devices before shooting anything else. And then we just like established that this is like an actual like viable way to do photography. And you can see it like through the industry now. Everyone's like doing these like virtual shoots through Zoom and FaceTime. And I was like, oh, well, like, you know, I maybe been one of the first people to really do it. Because a lot of people were treating it as a lesser vehicle for photography. And I think I got really great advice is to just have fun with whatever's happening. And like, I love that like ingenuity and then like also adaptability are like two things that I think, well, I just learned from being Black. Like, you have to survive. You have to keep going, because like you can't just like, as much as I wanted to just curl up in a ball and like just wait until I was going to be back on the set, I was like, I can't do that. That's not I felt in my core that wouldn't be I just knew I had something to give to the to give in this time. And like I was like, I am a creator. And people were also like asking me like a lot, like, what are you shooting? What are you shooting? And I'm like, I am in a ball crying because I have no idea like how to pay rent anymore. And
Fair.
like figuring out like the natural processes like of what COVID has done to just our lives. And like it was just a really nice way to get back to a sense of being myself and like it's in its like truest form. And like but it was like honestly going home was like when your iPhone has to go into like hard reset mode and then hey can I FaceTime you was like when the iPhone hits you back with like the Apple screen and it's like sure and it's back on. And I was like I like felt such a relief putting that out into the world. And it's still it lives on culture right now and on my website. And it's just like it was like such a breath. And I think it was also such a marker for that time where we were in like very intense lockdown for the first time ever as like a global culture and understanding of the world. And I think that for me just really showed me that like I can push through and like persevere anything. And I think that's just also reflective of just the Black experience. It's like, we're gonna be all right.
Oh, I love that. And I have time for one more question before I have to wrap it up, but I can't pass this because this is one of my favorite of your series. You mentioned practicing for that series with your siblings at home,
Yeah.
and your siblings have featured in the absolutely beautiful Purple series. I think it is in the New Black Vanguard book.
Yes.
Can you show us some of those images? And can you just talk to me about working with your family and this beautiful thing that you always have community, family, or chosen family in your work called? Talk to me about that before we have to wrap it up.
It's just really funny working with my family because you would think that would be like the easier subjects to like rail in and like gather and like get to do what you want them to do. But because these women have one raised me and my siblings have also seen me like eating in my underwear, like they go like, what do you want us to do? Okay. But then like now, like, because I guess Purple would have been the first time I shot them. They and this is like one of my favorite images. This is my grandmother. This is from the Purple scene.
Oh, tell us about this image. That's going to be our probably that's the last thing we'll have time for. So talk to me about this beautiful, powerful image of your grandmother.
Oh, and it's one of my favorite images. My grandmother is from Virginia, and so she's kind of the inspiration for the entire series. Purple is her favorite color, and so like everything is like kind of an homage to just her existence. And like when she was 18, she decided she was leaving the South because she didn't want to work in the white man's home, and she didn't want a life that was like subservient to whiteness. And she was like, I'm moving to New York where there's more opportunities, just for me to find a life. And then she finally moved to Philadelphia where we're from. But she always brought these like Southern traditions. And I think sometimes like when people hear me talk, I have like a little bit of a Southern accent. And it comes from that, like just growing up with like a Southern woman in the home. And she's now 96, still living with us. I shoot her almost every time I go home just because of I really want to just remember like these moments with her. And that image during that time, she was also just like very like sick. And she I just remember being like, are you sure we can do this? She was like, yeah. And she was like, I'm going to put on this dress. I'm going to be with my walker and we're going to do these images. And like, for me, that is like the way, like my family is so small and we live very close to each other. So I came home every day after school to her and like to her taking care of me. And also just taking care of my mother and taking care of all of my little siblings even now to this day. And I kind of wanted just to honor that, the beauty of that. And I didn't want to do it in a way that was I wanted to do it in a way that was reflective of an everyday beauty and like a mundane quality to like Blackness, because we always see like aspirational, and I wanted to give something that was very reflective of an everyday like beautiful Black woman and what that means. Also, like the dresses I reached out to designer Bathsheba Hay, who was like popping off in New York City at the time. Like she was up for the Vogue fund. I had no idea this woman was going to answer me. And I just DM'd her and I was like, hey, like I have a really good reference and I was wondering if I could take a few of your dresses to like do a really special project with my family. And we find out we live like 10 blocks from each other. And I went over to her home, picked up the dresses, and then brought them home to my family. And I did not tell the women in my family we were doing a shoot like this. And I did not tell them where it was gonna live. So like my family was like, I was like, hey mom, like look, you're on Vogue. And she was like, bitch, what? She was like, I would have got my hair done. Like she was like, they were like, but I was like, I knew if I would have told them what it was for, I would have had so much like pushback. So like kind of like stealthily being like, I'm shooting them for Vogue. They don't know it, but I wanted to like capture an average Saturday in my grandmother's home, and that's kind of what it is. Like every image is shot in her home or like literally a block away from where her home is. And everyone always is like, oh, like, is this on a farm? I'm like, no, this is South Philadelphia. And like the backdrop is also very interesting because Philly's the way that the city cares for its inhabitants is really interesting because a lot of these homes, like they demolish a lot of homes in my like 20 years of like living there. And then they leave the land and then weeds grow and then the grass grows because if you don't tend to the land, nature takes over. And so it takes over in a very beautiful way as people see, but some would call it an eyesore of not having a house. But I thought it was always really like nice that we just had like interesting plains of grass just sprawled out in between our homes. And I was just like, it's a very, but it is also like reflective of like being Philadelphia being the birthplace of America. So it just felt like a very like farm, like it feels like everyone's like, oh, it's suburban. And I'm like, this is just South Philly. And it's like, and it's all of its beauty. But now I was happy I documented that and I really wanted to make that the forefront because when I was like traveling home during that time, I was in college, I was noticing the rapid gentrification that was going on in Philadelphia and how all of these lots that have like stood there for 20 years are now being turned into like $400,000 to $500,000 homes. And like my neighborhood is changing. So it might not even look like that. It might all look like what the product of gentrification in maybe 5 years.
That is just one project, so layered, so complex, so rich, like so much of your work. Quil, I could talk to you all day, but that's all we have time for. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Everyone needs to see this beautiful work. Everyone needs to follow your work. There is more amazing work and more amazing conversations like this coming up in Photo Live on Thursday at 6 p.m. We're going to have Paula Bauer and Tasha Roberts, two artists, Indigenous artists on affirmation at the Koori Heritage Trust. That's an exhibition that's exploring truth-telling through a First Nations lens. So important. If people want to find out more about Photo Live and the Photo 2021 International Photography Exhibition, they should visit photo.org.au. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Quil, oh, you're incredible. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Bye. What a joy.